I am DM Zone. This is Gamers Oasis. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, in this video, we're going to talk about taking some prayer to guide us through how this spell works exactly. Of course, I'm talking about the prayer spell itself, but the reason why we have to have this cautionary tale is specifically because this spell perfectly describes how the editing issues that Mr. Cass faced in 1975 when he didn't know anything about RPGs or Dungeons and Dragons really at all. And this was his first ever editing book, what he really had to go through. Okay, so I feel like that disclaimer was important and sort of necessary. And hopefully you're still here to watch this spell video. But let me go into a little bit more. Okay, so this spell lowers the save throw of the enemies by 5% for every 10 levels, starting at 5% and then going to 10% at level 11 and 15% at level 21. Now, that might seem normal if you didn't know how to play Dungeons and Dragons, but we don't use percents. Now, luckily, the D20 does break down by 5%. So that would convert to a neg1, neg2, and neg3 respectively, but you wouldn't have a need to put both of those in there if you knew the rules. Also, another major part of this is this spell is meant to negatively affect the opponents. So this either affects the dice, making it harder to make save throws, or it raises the amount that they have to roll over, therefore making it harder to save. The way the wording makes it sound like it's a benefit. Duration is also a bit of a weird thing, as it hints to being something that continues as long as the caster continues to pray, and then lasts a full turn, we'll say 10 minutes, after the caster stops doing it. Now, I've talked about this several times before, but what if this was not a full 10 minutes, but what if this was a combat turn, which makes sense coming from chainmail as being a round of combat. So it lasts for a while they're doing this and then one combat round later. I think that makes more sense versus 100 rounds of combat, which is what a turn would be. I'd personally run it as a one combat round thing, not 10 full minutes. That said, I'm not 100% sure why they even mention anything about melee combat, as if a person standing there with a bow or the caster standing there wouldn't have their save throw also lowered by this spell. I don't think combat or melee combat has anything to do with it. Also, it talks about the spell has a 3-inch range, but it has a 2-inch diameter. I would say that it doesn't have to be 100% all within 3 inches, that if you were to cast it on a target 3 inches away and then that diameter reached past that range, it would still be fine. But that does beg the question about how does that work if they can't understand you, or if they can understand you. Maybe they can't hear you because of the sounds of combat or a silent spell on them. Does this give the opponent bonuses or negatives based upon those effects? Now, I know if a silent spell is cast on you, you can't cast. But what if it's cast on them? So one of the things I want to take into consideration too is what if you were to have like an area that had a bunch of priests, occultists or whatever, and they were doing this chant. The party comes in, they start to be affected by the prayer. This is a thing that the party has to go around and to eliminate that. And with this 3-inch range, this is a spell that potentially could be cast through a scrying crystal ball. If you're doing that, like, ooh, what does that mean? I think that would be very terrifying, that the priests behind a locked door who have this ability to scry a little bit are over here casting this chanting spell on people that are currently in the fight with a big bad guy. Anyways, guys, what do you think? Did I get this one right? Did I get this one wrong? What would you do? I think with a little bit of referee judgment and discernment, you'd be able to figure this one out. Okay, guys, keep rolling those dice. Have a good day. See you next one. Bye.